Has there ever been a game that made you strive to be the best? I ask this because this game has for me. I've been playing a game called Epic 7 for a couple of years now, ever since its release back in 2018. I've done pretty much everything that this game has to offer. Except for one thing. I've never been able to achieve Legend in RTA. So what does this mean? First, let me explain what RTA is. RTA, short for Real Time Arena, is a player vs player competitive mode where you actively battle a person in real time to be promoted to the next rank. There are currently 8 ranks that you can be in: Bronze, Silver, Gold, Master, Challenger, Champion, Emperor, and the rank that we are striving for, Legend. Legend is a rank for the best of the best, a rank only for the top 100 players in the world. In order to be placed in Legend, you need to finish in the top 100 as the season concludes. I wanted to document my experience as I learned to better myself as a player going through Season 5 of RTA, while also providing knowledge such as metas, why people pick certain units, why people do certain synergies, and all that nice stuff. I also wanted to document my attempt at climbing to Legend. But before we start, I want to roll it back a little bit, back to just before Season 1 was about to end. The one thing that I quickly noticed when attempting to go for Legend back in Season 1 in 2020 was that my unit pool was very small and my gear was not that great either. So I had to think outside the box. I started building units that people didn't normally use at that time and wouldn't be considered meta. Meta standing for most effective tactics available, basically meaning characters that are very effective at what they do and have a very popular pick rate. So since I didn't have much meta units, I kind of just had to work with what I got. So when the final hour came around, everyone was rushing, trying to get as high on the ladder as they could. It was a pretty crazy time. It was the first time I experienced anything like that, actually. When it came down to my final match, I started experiencing a lot of emotion, of happiness, excitement, adrenaline, but there was the thought of losing in the back of my head. And unfortunately, that's what happened. I lost. I lost the match that would have put me in the top 100. Even though I didn't make it, I felt like I was able to take away something meaningful from this experience. Seeing how people would think outside the box, using units people didn't normally use, building units weirdly, different team compositions, and the amount of mind games during the drafting phase. My god, it was an experience that I will always remember. Even though I lost something that I was trying so hard to achieve, I still got something out of it that I wouldn't have if I didn't try. Experience. But sadly, after Season 1 ended, I got really burnt out on the game. I would occasionally log in and play, but it was never like before. But recently, I was thinking about my experience back in Season 1. And I thought it would be a really good idea to document my journey as I learn new things, my new experiences and all that through the current season, which is Season 5. As I once again strive for the top 100 in the world. Fast forward a little bit over a year later, I'm motivated, I'm eager to learn, and I'm ready to start my journey. So I started off by doing my placements. Now, placements usually put veterans against newbies, so most of the time people that are doing placements that are veterans will just demolish. So I was able to clear out 10 fights fairly easily, and then I got my rank. I was placed in gold. Now, gold was fairly easy for me because the gear difference between me and my opponent was very apparent. My speed and my damage would just demolish them. So I didn't really learn anything in gold. It was kind of just speed running it basically. However, once I reached masters is when things very quickly changed. While making my way through masters, I actually found myself struggling a little bit because people were pretty similar in gear and people were using units I've never seen in action before. 2 units that I'm talking about in particular are from ReZero. And boy, let me tell you, they are some donkey ass units, man. In Masters was when I commonly saw them being picked. I very quickly learned how strong these units actually are. First, let's talk about Amelia. Typically, she's built very fast, so she usually tries to take turn 1 and be built with high resistance, so you're not debuffing her. Her skill 2 would push an ally, give them an attack buff, and then they try to steamroll you from there. Now, the second unit from ReZero is Rem. And Rem is just a freaking donkey, man. She is incredibly strong. She does not even need to take a turn, and she will kill your team. She can just sit there and do nothing. So what makes Rem so strong? Her kit is pretty damn loaded. So I'm going to simplify it. When you attack one of her allies, she has a 20% chance to AoE counter that decreases all buffs by 1 turn, essentially stripping them. Now if you think that's loaded, just wait. There's more. If anyone dies, she gets a buff called Demon Mode that cleanses her from any buffs. She cannot be debuffed while she has Demon Mode on. She ignores resistance. When she attacks with S1, she will do 2 hits instead of 1. And not to mention, the skill also has a 50% chance to apply a defense break. S3 gets an attack buff before she hits, does an AoE attack, and applies a blind debuff. Definitely not loaded at all. Once I started learning how to fight these units, and with the knowledge from the past seasons of me playing, I was able to climb out of Masters and into Challenger. And when I was promoted to Challenger is when new issues became apparent. My team compositions and my units were outdated. A new composition became very difficult for me to beat. Landy and Spectre Tenebria. I just didn't have any units that could stand a chance against these two together. The only one unit that I had that wouldn't even work most of the time was Arbiter Vildred, but he just isn't enough by himself. Violet also was becoming a very common pick because he got a recent buff which had like a whole freaking Star Wars opening intro buff list. There was a lot, so I needed to shift my focus towards a little bit of PvE because I needed to build new units that would help me solve this problem. I had nothing right now to deal with Spectre Tenebria and Landy, so I needed something to solve that. So I started checking my roster to see what units I had available, and turns out I was lucky enough to pull a Violet of my own. Violet being a beautiful counter to Rem and pretty much any water unit, as water units are very prevalent. And another unit was actually Charlotte. So Violet is going to be my counter to the water solution. Violet is perfect because the opposite element only has a 50% chance to hit, but he has an inbuilt evasion which increases his evasion even more. Stack it with a artifact as well, Moonlight Dreamblade, which gives another 20% evasion, so that's over 100% evasion. So he theoretically shouldn't be getting hit. The second unit that I chose to build was Charlotte. The reason why I chose Charlotte was because she has an exclusive equipment that pushes her combat readiness every time she gets hit. She doesn't need any crit rate at all because if she's buffed, she will always crit 100% of the time. She also has a natural AoE if she's buffed as well. So in theory, she should be a good unit to fight against them. So after building these two units, I ran out of resources. I actually couldn't even finish building them. Now, I didn't want to spend any money, but it just so happens that Smilegate actually released a couple of new floors in the Abyss Tower. And the very first floor gave 20 leaves as a reward. Those leaves would actually help me refresh my energy. So with 80 mil gold to my name, I re-geared some units and I watched a few guides on how to beat the floor. Now, the one thing you need to understand about this game is that there is a lot of RNG involved, especially in the Abyss. Things can go incredibly right for you, or it can go incredibly bad for you. You can either beat it in one go, or you're gonna spend 3 hours, sometimes more, trying to beat this one floor. Did that just rhyme? So there are 2 phases to every Abyss floor. And the first phase, I was actually struggling a little bit. But once I got the hang of things and started to understand the mechanics, it was a breeze. It was pretty easy. The second phase, however, it made me slam my desk a few times. The damn boss would stun my Tamarine and I would just be stuck there after 5-10 minutes of doing the first phase, and then I can't even do anything. So once Tamarine would get stunned, I died. My team just gets wiped. So after a couple of hours of trying out different compositions, I finally found one that worked, and I was able to clear it and get those juicy rewards. So after completing the Abyss, I was able to get enough resources to continue farming and get the materials for both Violet and Charlotte. So I was able to start using them in RTA. With Charlotte and Violet now in my arsenal, I was able to climb. I got out of Challenger and into Champion. But little did I know, there was a bombshell right around the corner.
The door will remain closed. At least to you it will.
But I think we'll save that for the next video. I learned quite a lot of new and interesting things along the way, so I think you guys will really enjoy the next video. So you can click over here whenever the next video is up. So I'll see you in the next video.